Hey everybody, John Smale here. Bunch of articles in my hand, old newspaper clippings, etc. It's a bittersweet memory night. Bittersweet because I'm talking about reviewers and how entertainers at Smales Pace were perceived by the media, especially by the newspaper. We reviews can be a death sentence. To an act on stage. It's like a pick or a pan, not spick and span, but they can pick you or they can pan you. And it's unfortunate because even though I respect that reviewers are journalists and they have a job to do, they kind of felt like if I'm a critic, I almost had to be critical. And maybe that was my oversensitivity. But I was a club owner and I was a supporter of musicians, and I just believe that, everybody's trying their best and up and coming. Not everybody is famous. You have to work at being famous. You have to be good to be famous. But don't knock somebody down a peg if they're having a bad night. We all have bad nights. We all have bad days. One such reviewer in London, I don't want to pick on Joe. Joe Matthias was the reviewer at the London Free Press, and it held a lot of sway in those days with readership because we didn't have social media. We didn't have a lot of other ways of communicating and advertising. And like you've seen in the movies, New York City, you wait for the morning papers to come out to see what the reviews were like. Well, we usually tried to get the reviewers in at the start of the week, like on a Tuesday night, an opening night, and hopefully they would like the act. Now, Joe was a little tough, and there's an article there on the upper left side there, and he's reviewing Dave Essig, and I just reread that article. I was quite surprised to see that the Whiteley brothers, Ken and Chris, were accompanying him that week. So it was like a super group. But the review was like, well, they were a little off, and, Dave's music a little edgy and a little esoteric. And then further down in the article there, Willie P. Bennett was also performing the same week. And he had a trio, Mike Gardner and Steve Klein, a university music student, on oboe, harmonica, and lead guitar. Like, what a super week. But the review was lackluster, mediocre, and lukewarm. So those are some of the things I faced. And another article there, S&B serves up sweet acoustics. Well, that was an article about Sprigs and Bringle, who really, that was a stage name for Mark Haynes and Colleen Peterson. And the review again was, well, it was sweet, but I don't know if he mentions the word dynamics or whatever, but of anybody, they were a really dynamic group as far as I was concerned, because there were lots of variety, from jazz songs to folk tunes to blues and mixed in with comedic routines, etc. I mean, that's real entertainment. Another article there, Smales Pace no longer a hideaway. I didn't think we were ever a hideaway. I mean, I thought we were fairly transparent, but I guess it says no longer a hideaway because I installed some new windows and some more architectural details out in the street that made it feel more inviting. So I guess that's a positive spin on that one, no longer a hideaway, although it infers that we were hiding something before. Certainly not hiding. I did everything I could to promote music and attendance at Smales Pace. Now, typically on a hey son, I'm just recording something on YouTube. If you don't mind, I'm going to hang up on you. Bye. I better turn off my phone. So anyway, that's how live TV works here, folks. I would sit on the edge of the stage, and I would just talk about the performers who were up and coming on our schedule, and I would read reviews if there were reviews of them. I'd talk about their music, their recordings, their influences, etc., and maybe some pieces that I heard from other musicians about them or from other fans. And I try to get down and personal. Other things, I talked about other musicians throughout the music scene in North America and Great Britain, etc. And I'd read articles, pieces of articles from, let's say, the Village Voice or Rolling Stone or Melody Maker, Georgia Strait or the Toronto Star, or whatever. Anything to sort of talk up music and that we were on that same continuum and path as other venues like the Troubadour, for example, in Los Angeles, or the Village scene in the West Village in New York City, or in Toronto and Yorkville, etc. That we had the same kind of philosophy and support, and I think it's really important about building community, and building community means it's still the same today. You have to believe and you have to support. What happened around the end of the 70s and early 80s was they called it the disco death. When disco killed off a lot of performance spaces everywhere. I was living in Toronto at that time, and I watched the death of many great bars, restaurants, cafes, listening rooms, coffee houses, etc. Because attendance was falling off, and that, to me, whose fault is it really? Is it the club owner? Is it the media? Is it lack of interest? Is it changing times? Is it I don't know what it is. But as Voltaire said, the present is pregnant with the future, and the past we honor and we remember, and hopefully we remember the good stuff, because let's face it, there were the rocky, dark days of reviews that I found to be okay, I'm oversensitive, but I found them to be too critical of people that were trying their best to make great music. I'm not whining. I am not complaining. I'm not picking on anybody in particular. I am just stating the way I felt at the time. It's a very visceral feeling when you are trying to promote and you're trying to make money, and other people are not as supportive as you'd like them to be. In any case, support your local musicians, and I hope you enjoyed tonight. We'll carry on tomorrow with some new stories and remembrances, and I hope you enjoy this one about the news, the papers, the way it used to be, and these things here, and they're all yellowed and torn and tattered, but needless to say, they're part of our history, our shared cultural history. Good night.